Welcome to the Financial Freedom Secrets Show. This is your host, Jackson Millan, the Wealth Mentor, helping business owners create financial freedom faster by mastering the language of money. Want to see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom? Complete our 40-point financial performance scorecard at wealthhealthcheck.com.au. That's wealthhealthcheck.com.au. The average score for most business owners is 18 out of 40. So complete the scorecard now and see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom.
G'day guys, this is Jackson Millan, the Wealth Mentor, and I hope you are doing well. This is another episode of the Financial Freedom Secrets Show, and I'm going to be rocking this one solo today. We're in a new year. It's already got to middle of February, and I just want to take a little bit of an opportunity to talk about some of the themes that I'm seeing in regards to the wealth space, particularly for business owners. We've had some amazing guests over the course of the last 12 months. We've brought some really great ideas to the table, and we've had some really amazing feedback around the caliber of people that we've brought to the conversation. However, I'm starting to see some warning signs for business owners the world around who are straddling the fence of wealth creation, waiting to see what will happen. There were people as much as kind of 18 months ago that were talking about this fear of a significant correction in the market, risks associated with the property market being overvalued, with the share market being overvalued, with interest rates being at historical all-time lows. And obviously all of the repercussions that we've been dealt off the back of COVID-19, the amount of economic stimulus that's been pumped into the economy, the shifting of the way that people have gone about their spending behaviours, the accumulation of cash flow, the frivolous spending. There's been a number of different themes that have presented themselves over the course of these recent times. And now we're starting to see the impacts associated with these themes and changes. On the flip side, we're seeing people who are immensely bullish, that believe that these good times are never going to end, that the markets are going to continue to grow, the sky can never fall, and that we're never going to find ourselves in a situation of hardship. And I like to find myself somewhere in the middle. I'm not an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. I like to position myself as a realist. And I believe that at a fundamental level that we need to be in a position and create a financial operating system that allows us to navigate any economic times. The vast majority of times are going to be prosperous and they are going to be positive, that we're going to see times where business is strong. We're going to see property markets in the right areas growing. We're going to see share markets and listed companies producing consistent profits and growing their share prices. This is a natural symptom of a good economic environment. However, it would be short-sighted of me to think that that is going to be the only outcome through all periods of time, because we know throughout history there have been times of growth and there have been times of recession and depression. It is a natural part of an economic cycle. And sure, it can make us nervous, it can make us uncertain, it can put us in a position where we're not sure what we should do next, and we can sometimes feel like we're trying to catch a falling knife. If we get it right, then great, fantastic, but if we get it wrong, the outcomes associated with getting it wrong can be perceived to be catastrophic. But how high are the stakes really? And this is the position that I like to take. How do we skew the odds in our favor? How do we make sure we have the right financial operating system that gives us peace of mind and certainty to be able to navigate these uncertain times? And this is why our proprietary process, the Wealth Mastery Machine, has been absolutely battle tested. And we have utilized it ourselves. We've used it to be able to build a multi-seven-figure business. We've been able to use it to help our clients accumulate over $2 billion in combined wealth. Yes, that is billion with a B. And we have used it to help people not make subjective, emotional, knee-jerk decisions around their money, which can sometimes be the most costly decisions that we ever make. So let me talk you through the working parts of this philosophy. At its center, the idea of this entire philosophy is that we all want to create financial freedom. Now, how you define financial freedom, what financial freedom means to you and your family is ultimately up to you. But for me, it's about being able to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want, if I even want to do it at all. Yours might be to be able to choose whether you work or not, to be able to pursue your passions without having constraints around money and not having to worry about the decisions that you make because of the financial implications of those decisions. And whatever you define that to be, it's really all about that flexibility of choice, the ability to have choice. And I personally feel that in some way, shape or form, freedom is a construct that isn't necessarily real. It is a perception of a particular situation. And what we don't want is necessarily financial freedom. We want the ability to have the financial choices that having the right financial foundation provides. Whatever you define as financial freedom, there are three things that often get in the way. One, you don't have a plan. You either don't know what financial freedom means to you or why it means that to you, or you don't know how to get from where you are to where you want to go. And both of these present problems. And in the vast majority of cases, the people that we work with either are flying by the seat of their pants, they have some esoteric idea of what financial freedom means, or they have a one-dimensional plan. But they focus on one goal at a time. And once they tick off that goal, they either go, cool, what's next? Or they're presented with a crossroads of having to make a choice because they've been caught off guard because they haven't prepared for the big picture plan. And they now need to make a scarcity-based choice. I wanted this, but I now want this, but I don't have enough financial means to do both. So which one do I want more? And this is where this very much shrink yourself wealthy and scarcity-based philosophy let's build around these kind of age-old principles of budgeting all come from, which in my opinion is bullshit. The next thing, aside from planning, is that they don't have the cash. Most people are smart people. They know the fundamentals, the high level of how wealth is built. They know that they should build a valuable business and position it for sale. They know they should accumulate good quality properties. They know they should invest in the share market. They know they should put money into their retirement savings. They know all of these things from a theoretical standpoint. Whether they know the nitty-gritty depends on the person. But the problem is that they just typically do not have the cash flow to be able to invest in those things to the level they know they should at this stage of the game. Right? And the third part is this is fueled by the lack of consistency. Because there is never going to be one decision that skyrockets yourself to financial freedom. We need to stop swinging for the fences here. This is about being able to take regular, consistent, repeated action to produce a regular, consistent, repeated result. This is what the definition of a machine is. So, how do we get there? Well, there are three key components. The first component is that you need to define. Because sometimes we get impatient, we don't necessarily give ourselves the time and the space to be able to define the goals. You want to roll our sleeves up and get stuck into the wealth creation itself. And this is very short-sighted because it is not money that you want. It is the choices that money provides you that you want. And you firstly need to define what those choices are going to be. And then that allows us to work out the financial means required to give you that choice, to almost presuppose it, to give us the maximum likelihood of achieving those objectives, right? So firstly, we need to consider the mindset. This is something that's often so overlooked. In the vast majority of people that we have ever worked with, that we have ever spoken to about wealth, their number one measure of achieving their goals relies on their willpower and their sheer grit and determination. Their grit and determination to maintain a spreadsheet, their grit and determination to be able to allocate their surplus manually at the end of every month or quarter or year, their sheer grit and determination to do the work that is required to go buy that next investment property, to unlock the equity, to be able to multiply that portfolio. All of these things are manual-based processes that are reliant on the quality of your mindset, the quality of your determination, and the quality of your perseverance. And if history shows, and is it indicated for anything, that shows that the vast majority of people do not have those skills. Or they lack those skills, we're meaning that they are missing a substantial amount of the opportunities in these spaces. So we need to make sure that we understand the mindset, because so many people hit their head up against these invisible mindset ceilings and they really struggle to overcome. We need to pay homage to the past. We need to work out where we've come from, what's led us to where we are. We need to create and understand our money method, our intrinsic ways of being wired and how we make decisions, how we act in certain situations, how we deal with stress, particularly financial stress. Are we more likely to move away from pain or towards pleasure? All of these things are largely going to impact the decisions that you make and the strategy that you create. Because if we ignore these things, and we think about this for a moment, that every single person in the world plays by the same tactics, the same rules, the same strategies. And if that is true, then the only thing that is different between you and them is the quality of your mindset. And most people invest next to no time, if any, in improving the quality of that mindset. Second, we need to create a roadmap. And our philosophy around this is that everyone should have a 20-year roadmap. And if you're not familiar with this terminology, then You're going to be freaking out. You're going to be like, wow, I don't even know what I want for dinner tonight, let alone what I want in 20 years. And myself personally, I had this experience myself. Now, I stared at a blank page for hours trying to unpack and asking myself what I wanted anywhere beyond a year in the future. And it was only through the regular, repeated iteration of this exercise that I was able to continue to build and evaluate my own 20-year roadmap, to get clear on the things that I wanted to add. Once now that I'd given myself permission to dream for the things that I wanted, to identify my true intrinsic drivers, the quality of the life that I wanted to maintain. Next, I then iterate. There are certain things that I don't want anymore that I once wanted, and I remove them. What's the point of having things there arbitrarily just because other people want them? If you no longer desire them, then let's tailor the plan. And then optimizing, tweaking, and improving. Like you might go from having $10,000 holidays to $30,000 holidays. Now, there are certain ways that you look at your goals that may shift to change. So having an objective framework that allows you the ability to dynamically change them and evolve it over time is going to be critically important. And then the last part of define is having a simple strategy. Because I've tried this, guys. I've worked with some very sophisticated and wealthy individuals, and the common thread between all of their situations is that the best results that are created by these wealthy individuals all come through a relatively simple and straightforward wealth creation system. They stick to what they know, they outsource everything else, or they simplify or risk adjust everything else. They rely on systems, frameworks, playbooks, automations to do the heavy lifting for them. They understand the value of their time, and they realize that they should be playing towards their strengths and buffering against their weaknesses, as opposed to trying to just battle against their weaknesses to convince themselves that they aren't in fact weaknesses, which they really are. So we try and keep this as simple as possible, because if you cannot explain it on the back of an envelope, if you do not understand all of the workings of your strategy, it is likely that you are not going to sustain that strategy into the future. It's going to fall away. It's going to stop working. It's going to break. It's going to lose its potential and the value that it delivers to you. And that becomes very, very difficult to manage. Next, we talk about create. So once we've defined this roadmap, we're clear on the money mindset, we've got the strategy, we then need to create. And creating is the cornerstone of everything when it comes to wealth. The first part of create is about sustaining surplus, because without surplus, there is no wealth. We need to have money left over in order to allocate towards investments to allow those investments to compound and grow. And without that surplus, we are basically relying on the existing assets that we have in our portfolio. And if we're not contributing to them, it's going to be far more difficult for you to be able to achieve your goals. This is the fundamental thing, that we have seen this huge disconnect between some of the highest income earners and those who have earned very modest incomes. And in some cases, the people who earn incredibly high incomes have more struggles and more challenges around managing their cash flow than those who have modest incomes, because of this phenomenon of cash flow creep. The difference between them is that those people who have had modest incomes have mastered the art of managing that modest income and making it work for them, because it is not the money that you make that matters, it's what you keep that counts. And we need to make sure we've got the right structure in place to manage this. Next, we need to destroy our debts, because as we can see at the moment, particularly as interest rates are increasing, for many people, the repayments of the interest alone that they're paying on their mortgage is in some cases tripled to where it was 12 months ago. And I've been talking about this for a long time, is that you make hay while the sun shines. You pay off your debt while the debt is cheap. But even now with the interest rates increasing, we have no choice but to increase those repayments. So what we need to do is we need to be able to evaluate the opportunity cost of allocating your surplus. Do we use that surplus to pay off debt? And what is the return on investment from doing so? Do we use that surplus to invest? And then how do those scenarios compare? Because the idea is that for you to create the level of financial freedom and choice that you want, there is going to come a point in time whereby you don't have debt anymore. You need to have that fully paid off, whether that be you've paid it off through the allocation of your surplus, or you have sold down your assets in order to extinguish that debt. We need to make sure we've got a roadmap for this. And next, we need to automate investments. And I use the word automate for a very important purpose, because unless we have some level of automation and systemization in regards to the allocation of our surplus, it will always and inevitably become an afterthought. You are going to do it when you have the time, when you're not so busy, when you've got the mental bandwidth. There are going to be more increased circumstances where you do not have these automations, whereby you defer the decisions. So I'll do that next week. I'll do that next month. And you may have the best intentions, but inevitably for the vast majority of people, those systems, those manual systems will break. Whereas when we have automated systems that almost force ourselves to allocate that surplus, then we can basically set it on autopilot. As long as we have produced the income necessary to allocate to all of our various buckets, then the strategy will continue to operate without you. And this is incredibly powerful. So create is all about sustaining surplus, destroying your debts, and automating your investments. And that leaves us to manage. Now, managing is basically where the money is really made in the long term. And this is where compounding works its magic, because wealth is a marathon. And so many people are trying to run it at sprint pace. And by doing so, they're setting themselves up for failure. They're setting themselves up for friction. They're setting themselves up for missing opportunities. And the problem here is that most people have never been taught how to manage their wealth. How do you do it? How do you evaluate your current investments? How do you optimize those current investments? How do you know additional investments that you should be adding into the fold to ensure that they complement the foundation that you've already built? These are all really important questions. And unless we have an objective framework, you're always going to have this 2020 vision in hindsight where you're looking at these particular scenarios with rose-tinted glasses, and it's not ultimately going to reflect what it is that you need to do to get you from where you are to where you need to go. There's a couple of things we need to do. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to be looking for opportunities to maximize and magnify our money. Now, as Warren Buffett said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And this is where people get frustrated, particularly when they're business owners early on, is because the compounding snowball doesn't roll very quickly. It doesn't gain momentum very quickly. And it takes time, sometimes 10 years, sometimes 15 years for the magnitude of that snowball to be able to get you to a point whereby your contributions to that wealth are dwarfed by the compounding of the asset fulfilling and feeding itself. And this is where we really shift things into the favor of being able to manage instead of focusing so much on the creation. The next thing we need to do is we need to elevate income, because for most of us, we have a single active source of income, whether it be our business or our employment or whatever it might be. Sure, you might have some investment properties, but let's face it, the income that's produced is relatively insignificant compared to your active income. And therefore, we need to start working towards shifting our portfolio from a growth focus to an income focus, because let's face it, if you've got a portfolio of properties, you can't eat the appreciation in the spare room if you need to put food on the table, right? So there comes a point in time where we need to start making a shift away from growth and towards income. And not all of it, but a portion of the portfolio to ensure that we have that liquidity so you then have the choice of what you do with your active income. And let's face it, the vast majority of people that I've ever worked with that have got to that retirement, they might spend a year or two traveling around the world and doing their hobbies and doing whatever it is that they might do. But there inevitably comes a point in time where they get bored and they want to go back to work, do some consulting, set up a new business, go do some volunteering, whatever it might be. They want to work in some way, but mostly it's driven by purpose, not driven by income. Cool? And then lastly is reducing risk. I have the philosophy that we should take the least amount of risk necessary to get to the outcome that we want. And obviously, the closer we get to that outcome, typically we can get to a point with the less risk that we take, which is typically contrary to how many business owners think. That many business owners and entrepreneurs just want to go flat stick, pedal to the metal for as long as they possibly can to shortcut their trajectory to their goals. And where this might be useful in the context of a business, in some cases, not my approach, but when it comes to our wealth, it's not how we want to do things. We want to make sure that we have a risk-adjusted approach to achieving our goals, and we're utilizing tried and true fundamentals to ensure that we are really taking chips off the table. We're providing ourselves with that peace of mind and certainty because we understand the economics of the situation. This is what the Wealth Mastery Machine is all about. So guys, I want you to think about this. It's a relatively short episode today. I want you to think about this concept of financial freedom and financial choice. I want you to think about the challenge that you're facing around the no plan, the no cash, the no consistency. I want you to think about the three pillars of defining, creating, and managing. And I want you to think about all of the various tactics on the outside, the money mindset, the real roadmap, the simple strategy, the sustaining surplus, the destroying debts, the automated investments, the magnifying money, the elevating income, the reducing of risks. And I want you to evaluate where are the biggest opportunities for you to focus your attention in 2023 to be able to get more out of your situation, to be able to squeeze more juice, get more opportunity, and be able to level up your finances. Because there is going to be an abundance of opportunity this year, guys, if you're prepared. Now, guys, if you also want to go to a higher level of understanding exactly where your focal points are, I advocate that you complete our 40-point financial performance scorecard. It's basically the top 40 things that get in the way of you creating financial freedom. And the average score for most people around the world, we've done this with thousands of people, is 18 out of 40, which means most people are below average financially. By completing that scorecard, you will be able to work out the exact next best moves that you need to focus on to improve your path to creating financial freedom. So click the link in the show notes. Make sure you complete it. Let us know your score. Feel free to share it with us on social media. And if there's any other way we can help, feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to book in a time. Feel free to add me as a friend on Facebook. Join our free Facebook group. There's a link in my bio. And guys, remember, a good idea in theory remains exactly that, just a good idea until you put it into practice. So let's start implementing. We'll catch you on the next episode.